Do you find it difficult to know when to draft defensive players in IDP and offensive drafts, or when to pull the trigger on Travis Hunter in the same draft? Give me a few minutes and I think I can answer all your questions. Hey everyone, welcome back to another week of the IDP Plus podcast. And in this one, I plan to keep it short and sweet, and we're going to keep it more strategy based in this one before we jump into some more rankings for redraft in the coming weeks. In this episode, we're actually going to cover a few things. We're going to cover when do we take Travis Hunter in offense and IDP drafts? When's the proper time? Are we, is there such thing as drafting him too early, too late? I don't want to miss out on a guy like this kind of thing. When's the proper time to draft him? Also, I'm going to talk a little bit about drafting IDP defensive players with offense. When's the right time to kind of pull the trigger on guys like this? And some things that you should know when you're going into drafts like that as well. So before we get into drafting IDP with offense, let's jump into a little bit about Travis Hunter, the enigma that is this two-way player playing offense and defense. And there's not a whole lot to say about it other than just don't overthink it. Personally, I kind of value Travis Hunter right now, especially in leagues and drafts that I've been in. I haven't personally been able to draft him myself in those combined leagues. I haven't quite been at the right position, but I've seen him go as early as the 203, and he goes there as the 2-2 actually. So he's gone pretty early in drafts. From what I can tell, the way I kind of see it is that I would put him behind guys kind of like your staple players like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lambs, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson. For me, after those guys, it's kind of an open market. Go ahead and pull the trigger and don't feel bad about it, because a guy like Travis Hunter is going to bring enormous value to your IDP roster, especially in those leagues that are pretty small. Actually, I have a league that just dabbled a little bit in IDP and they have 3 spots, a DL, LB, and a DB. That is going to be the best value you can possibly get out of a guy like Travis Hunter. I wasn't lucky enough to get him in that league, but it just goes to show when you put a wide receiver in a defensive back slot like that, you essentially open up an extra slot on offense. Not only are you getting wide receiver points in a defensive back position that is historically pretty volatile, unpredictable year to year, and overall low scoring comparatively to linebackers and your top tier defensive linemen and offensive players alike. But when you can slide a wide receiver in a defensive back slot like that, you've got a pretty solid, reliable floor. And then also, like I mentioned, you open up your entire offense. It doesn't take a roster spot on the offensive side of the ball. So you get to add an offensive player type scoring to your IDP roster and open up your entire offense. So to me, taking that, you can almost not really take this guy too early. But like I said, in terms of overall scoring, I don't see him really outproducing guys like Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lambs. You're really top tier guys on offense, but nonetheless, if you can swing around and get him in the second round or something like that, you're really adding a lot of value. You get that first round capital and your Jamar Chase or whoever, and you get him turn around and get Travis Hunter around the turn. Boom. Oh my gosh, you've got a wide receiver slot and then Travis Hunter in the DB slot. You don't have to worry about that one DB slot, which is a pain in the rear to have to figure out during the season anyways, and you've opened up more opportunities for your offense as a whole. So I really love the idea of just drafting Travis Hunter. I'm hoping that I can get in a best ball or something this offseason and get him myself. I just kind of want to see what it's going to be all about, and hopefully, that he will keep that dual designation. Obviously, that's very important. If your league doesn't value him or he doesn't have the opportunity to play as a defensive back, then you can't really reap the benefits here of Travis Hunter. But like I said, don't really overthink it. In a combined offense and defense league, like I said, I've seen him go as early as 2-2. So I think wheels up for Travis Hunter here. So let's talk a little bit more about defensive players and when to draft defensive players overall. We've got Travis Hunter, the enigma, a guy we've never seen, a unicorn. That's a very specific circumstance we've never really seen in IDP leagues. But now something we do have to deal with every year is figuring out where we got to slot these defensive players in with the offensive guys in our combined leagues. When's the proper time to go after these defensive players as opposed to the wide receiver or the offensive counterparts? And there's a few things to kind of keep in mind. Henceforth, prioritize offense. Don't overthink the defensive part. You're not going to outsmart everybody by taking defense early and loading up on top tier defensive talent. Go ahead and let your league mates break the seal as well. That's not something that I'm particularly fond of doing myself. Is taking the first IDP off the board. So, like I said, let your league mates break that seal. And then three, add IDP depth in season. Don't really feel like you need to go extremely deep unless, of course, you have deep benches and or you're in a best ball league, things like that, where you're going to kind of need that extra depth for the future, because you can always add. There's guys that come out of the woodworks all the time in IDP, so you can always pick guys up in season. And then know your league scoring. That's very, very important. If that wasn't already obvious, know how your league scores. Because if you're looking to draft top tier edge rushers and your league is depressed in the sack department, you're only getting 2 or 3 points per sack. That's not necessarily going to help your team. Even though these guys are the top of their position, they're not really going to score you all the points. And instead of getting a guy like that, you might probably like to get a linebacker or two or load up on those on positions like that. Just kind of know your league scoring. Do they value pass deflections very high? Are DBs getting a value? Look at the overall scores from year to year. That's a thing that I really love to do, is just kind of see where guys are finishing in new leagues. It just gives me, rather than going through the actual IDP scoring and trying to break it down in my head, if you can just actually see the numbers and where IDPs are finishing overall compared to the offensive players. Are they finishing in the top 10, 20? Do they really start coming in the top 50, 100? That's going to kind of help you shape your IDP draft and know when to kind of draft and value these IDP players compared to the offensive players as well. So again, just kind of use your resources. Sometimes you got to get a little creative, and then also familiarizing yourself with the IDP landscape. Doing a lot of best ball drafts is something that I do every off season to just kind of keep my mind fresh and still kind of maintain a value and see where the market and the community actually values these guys, so that I can kind of know and take mental notes of guys that I think are falling in value, where I might be able to take advantage in my drafts as well. So now, if we want to go a little bit deeper on some of these points, where we prioritize offense as number one. Now, as I said before, don't overthink this. You're not gonna outsmart your league mates. You're not just gonna get one up by going and getting two or three premier edge rushers and then a top end linebacker and just filling your entire starting lineup with just top tier talent early in your draft. You're not going to outsmart your league mates. What's going to happen is you're going to end up with an outstanding defensive roster, right? And then your offensive roster is going to be absolute dog crap. You're not going to have any depth. You're probably going to be very limited to a couple of anchor style players who are just going to be kind of the pillar of your offense. And then you're going to be extremely shallow, and you're not going to get anywhere, because it's in overall, offense is king. Offense, as much as we love our IDP leagues, offensive players are just naturally going to score more points than IDP players, unless you just have some crazy scoring defensive league, which, that happens. But those are a little more unique. We're trying to catch the more general and broad group of people here. So, like I said, don't overthink this. Prioritize your offense. Go ahead and fill out your offensive lineup. I always fill out, even through the flex if I can, unless for some reason I see that my league mates are actually going early and taking IDPs off the board extra early in drafts, because at that point, when your league mates are going ahead and jumping ship as well on the offensive players, then you can feel a little bit better about grabbing offensive value later on in your draft, because there was a 5-player run on IDP. You can go ahead and scoop a player up. What I like to do is, when I see that now, if one defensive player goes in a round, don't feel like you have to start pulling the trigger. It's not just gonna start flooding. But if a run goes, you see 4 or 5 IDPs go, and then they really start kind of mixing in there, go ahead and take one here and there. What I like to do is I kind of flip-flop it, is where, like, if I see defensive players start going, okay, I'll go ahead and grab me top 8 edge rusher. So I've got the staple at the defensive line. And then a couple of rounds later, okay, I'm going to get me a top 12 linebacker. So I've got a staple at my linebacker position. But I'll always be drafting offense as I'm going through, and it often ends up leading to a pretty stable IDP roster, because in IDP you also have to consider the fact that there's a lot more players. Whenever you're drafting offense, there's maybe 5 startable players on offense on any given team, where there's 11 startable defensive players on any given team. So there's a lot more players for you to choose from in those middle rounds. There's no reason to go fill up on a ton of top tier, top 12 defensive linemen, defensive backs, linebackers. There's no reason to go and load up on them early. Go ahead and fill out your starting roster on offense, and then whenever your league mates break that seal, that's when you start trickling in your IDP players, depending on the level of depth that you need in IDP. If you have like a 6 to 8 league or 6 to 8 IDP, then you can kind of wait even longer on shallower leagues like that. But again, just kind of see where your league mates are breaking the seal on that. And again, most leagues are probably going to be about 12 man, so you're not really going to miss out if Ron starts immediately after one of your picks. You're only going to miss out on about 11 players, a handful of each position. You can still have plenty of value you can scoop up later on. Don't feel bad about it. Let your league mates kind of set the tone for you. Don't be the first one to go after IDP. And again, don't feel like you have to go extremely deep early, because every year we have so many IDPs come out of the woodworks. Guys like Jamie Sherwood, guys like Cody Barton, guys like Caden Ellis, guys like Zach Bond, Andrew Van Ginkel. None of these guys were drafted. They were all picked up off of waivers, and now they're top 15, 20 at their positions. Not necessarily Cody Barton, but you get the point. These guys were all picked up off of waivers, and it happens every single year because guys go down. And in IDP, it's not like talent in the backups. Actually, it's more about opportunity with IDP, not necessarily talent. Where on the offensive side of the ball, you can't necessarily just slot in the wide receiver 3 to immediately get those wide receiver 2 numbers on an offense whenever your top guy goes down. It's just not, it doesn't work that way. The talent has to be there on offense in order to make it work, because you have to beat your defenders. But on IDP, if you're in the right spot, you're going to get tackles. And production doesn't necessarily mean that you're a talented player, but production is what we like to see for IDP, and opportunity reigns king. So as long as you're on the field on IDP, or on the defensive side of the ball, as long as you're on the field, you're getting opportunity snaps, you're going to score points. It's just a matter of how much. What kind of player are you? You're figuring out your lanes. Are you able to get good angles on tackles and just make things happen? Cody Barton has made a living of just being a pure tackler. Caden Ellis knows how to rush the passer. He just got an opportunity when I think Pete Warner or something went down in New Orleans a few years ago, and bam, he popped, got paid. Jamie Sherwood just popped in New York after he got an opportunity. The backups for IDP often pop when injuries happen, and then they go on to get paid. But also there's a lot of turnover on IDP, so that's where you want to stay flexible on your defensive side and not go too gung-ho early in your drafts. And then I'll add depth through the season, because guys pop up out of nowhere every year. So like I said, don't feel like you're going to be the smartest man in the room by going and drafting your IDP players first or early in your draft. So, usually where I see them kind of go is right around the 5th or 6th round, roughly, in your deeper leagues or higher scoring leagues, maybe a little earlier, but usually 6th, even to the 8th round sometimes. It just kind of depends on your league. So, like I said, let your league mates set the tone. Do your research, find out, know your scoring, understand everything like that. And don't feel like you're going to take Travis Hunter too early unless you've got like the 101. If you're in a super flex and you're taking Travis Hunter over top 5 quarterbacks, you're not really thinking things through there. So, put a little logic to it. But, after those top few flex players, I think it's okay to pull the trigger on Travis Hunter. So if you guys have any other questions about defense, where to draft them, I've got other rankings videos out and things like that. If you got more questions about Travis Hunter, throw them in the comments. If you like what you saw and this was helpful, please let me know. Throw a like down, subscribe, turn that notification bell on as well so you don't miss any videos in the future. And thanks everybody for tuning in. I was actually good enough to keep it fairly short for you this time. So thanks everybody, and we'll see you next time on another episode of the IDP Plus podcast.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.